All right, so you ready to really dig into what's going on with Manchester United? Because um, things are, well, let's just say it's not pretty over at Old Trafford.
Definitely a rough patch, that's for sure.
I mean, come on, this is a club that's basically the gold standard in English football, right? Like decades of being on top. But this season, it's like someone swapped out the players for a bunch of, I don't even know.
Yeah. It's been a shocking turn of events, and what's really worrying is this isn't just like a little dip in form,
Yeah.
you know. There are some seriously concerning trends starting to show up.
Yeah, you're telling me we're going through this article from BBC Sport today, and people are actually saying the R word, like straight up relegation. We're talking about championship football playing against
Yeah.
Wrexham. Yeah, that Wrexham, the one with Ryan Reynolds and all that.
It's crazy to think
I
about.
know, right? I mean, I practically did a spit take when I saw that, but the more you look into it, the more it's like, ooh, this could actually be bad.
It's a situation that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. To really get how big of a deal this is, we got to go back a bit. Remember when Manchester United got relegated back in 1974? That was a huge deal for English football. And for them to be even close to that again, it's almost unbelievable.
You're preaching to the choir here, but then you look at the stats this season, and it's like a train wreck. Their December was statistically their worst in over 50 years. They lost 6 times in just 1 month. That's only happened twice before in their whole history.
Yeah, and it's not just the losses. They let in 18 goals just in December, the most since 1964. That's almost 60 years ago. It's not just a slump. It's like something's fundamentally wrong. Like their defense, which used to be so solid, just totally sprung a leak.
Yeah, okay, so the defense is a mess, but usually you can fix that, right? Like hit the January transfer market, pick up a couple of good defenders, and things start looking up.
Right. Well, that's where it gets even trickier. This article mentions that the club is in a ton of debt, like over 113 million in the red.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fix a flat tire with a Band-Aid, you know?
Hold on, over 113 million pounds in debt. But wait, didn't they just bring in a new coach, what's his name, Ruben Amorim, back in November? Didn't he have some big plans?
He did, but even Amorim is saying the team needs a shock, like straight up. You don't hear a manager, especially at a club like Manchester United, say something that blunt very often.
Yeah, he's not mincing words, that's for sure. But hold up, if they're in such bad shape financially, how can they even think about fixing things in the transfer market?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Amorim has already said publicly that they'd have to sell players before they could even think about buying anyone new. And realistically, who are they going to sell at this point?
You're talking about guys like Casemiro, right? I mean, legend, sure, but he's definitely past his prime and makes a ton of money. It's hard to see any club wanting to take that on.
Exactly. And then there's someone like Xerxes. Big money signing, but hasn't done anything. Total flop. Remember that Newcastle game where he got subbed off after like 33 minutes? And the crowd actually applauded him as he was walking off.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I don't even know.
It's like this perfect image of where the club's at. Fans are frustrated, but there's this weird sympathy for the players who are obviously struggling too.
Yeah, it's just a mess all around. It's wild because we're talking about Manchester United here. They should be fighting for titles, not battling to stay out of relegation. Speaking of struggling players, what about Rashford? He's back from injury, but didn't even get off the bench in that Newcastle game.
The Rashford situation.
Yeah.
Amorim gave this really cryptic quote after the match, something about thinking about the team, not just Rashford. Kind of a red flag, if you ask me.
So what's that about? Is he trying to motivate him? Is Rashford unhappy and wants to leave? Or has Amorim just lost faith in him?
That's the mystery we got to figure out. This isn't just about stats and money anymore. It's a whole human drama unfolding. And whatever happens next could be massive, not just for Manchester United, but for all of English football. It really is, isn't it? Like this club, such a powerhouse for so long, but now it's like, I don't know, walking a tightrope.
And get this, we haven't even talked about what relegation would actually do to them financially. This BBC article lays it out, and it's not pretty. Like, just missing the Champions League, that alone would cost them £10 million. Just from Adidas, their sponsor.
Yeah, 10 million quid, gone.
Crazy, right?
And that's just the start. Actually, going down to the championship, that'd be a financial earthquake. Slashing costs, selling players. They'd be living on parachute payments just to survive.
So from playing the big boys in Europe, they're suddenly up against Wrexham. Wait, isn't Ryan Reynolds the owner there?
The one and only.
Can you imagine the memes if that happened? Manchester United versus, I mean, no disrespect to Wrexham, but come on.
Twitter would melt down, for sure. But honestly, it's bigger than just funny memes. Man U in the championship, that changes the whole landscape of English football.
Yeah, it's like suddenly everything we thought we know gets flipped upside down.
Exactly. All these smaller clubs, they'd have a shot they never had before.
Mhm.
And the transfer market, who knows what that'd look like?
It's mind-boggling to even think about it. We just assume these big clubs are invincible, right?
Ah.
But what happens when that isn't true anymore?
It's like shaking the foundations of the whole league.
And the fans, man, can you imagine being a die-hard Manchester United supporter going through that? Instead of Champions League nights at Old Trafford, it's like, what, Tuesdays in?
Right.
Who even plays in the championship? I don't even know.
Right. Instead of world-class players, they're seeing guys they've never even heard of. The whole vibe changes completely. And for a lot of fans, it's more than just watching games, you know? It's family, tradition, their whole identity.
It's got to be like grief almost. Losing something that's been such a big part of your life. This article's all about the money stuff, but it doesn't really capture that emotional side for the supporters.
You're spot on. We focus so much on the business, the numbers. We forget about the human impact. Behind every stat, there's a person who's living this, their passion, loyalty, their
Right.
heartbreak.
Yeah, and this story isn't over, not even close. We're just at the start, and who knows what's coming next.
Oh, a ton of twists and turns, I guarantee it. Can they turn it around? Will Amorim even last the season? What about their big players? This is going to be huge, not just for Manchester United, but for all of English football.
Okay, hold up. We've talked numbers, the drama,
Hmm.
but what about the actual football? Like, why are they so bad right now? Is it the players? The manager? Both?
Now, that's where it gets interesting. One of the big criticisms of Amorim is his tactics. People say he's too rigid, obsessed with possession, even when it's not working,
So he's trying to force things that don't fit.
basically. And you watch their games, you can see it happening. They're controlling the ball, but not doing anything with it. Passing for the sake of passing, no real threat.
So it's not that the players are bad, it's more like they're in a system that's not working for them.
Exactly. And that leads to a whole other set of questions. Did they bring in Amorim with a specific plan, and why is it failing? Can he even adapt, change his style, or is he too stubborn?
And let's not forget the pressure he's under. Managing Manchester United, that's got to be intense. Expectations, the fans, the media.
Tell me about it. And then you add in the money problems we talked about. It's a nightmare scenario for a coach. Rebuild a sinking ship, but you can't use your hands.
I gotta ask, what happens to the players in all this? If Man U does go down, who stays, who bolts?
That's a question keeping a lot of people awake at night, I bet. Some might be loyal, see it as a challenge, a chance to rebuild. But let's be real, some guys are going to see themselves as too good for the championship. They'll be out the door fast.
Like who, for example, so we were talking about the players, right? Who stays if things go south? Who hits the eject button?
Yeah, tough call. Someone like Bruno Fernandes, he's all about that Champions League life. Think he'd be happy grinding it out in the championship.
Good point. He seems like he needs that big stage, But then you got someone like Rashford, homegrown, Man U through and through. Maybe he sees it as a chance to, I don't know, pay back the club or something.
That's an interesting thought. He might feel like he owes them, got to help them through this. And think about the younger guys. Suddenly they're thrown into the deep end. Sink or swim time.
Yeah, chance to prove themselves. Could be good for some of them, actually. But a wild story to see who steps up, who folds under pressure.
Totally. Like a real-life football movie, but way more intense.
Oh, and speaking of intense, the manager situation, if they go down, is Amorim gone?
He's probably toast if that happens. But who do they even bring in? Anyone good is going to think twice before taking that job. It's a mess.
Right. Do they go for a big name, someone who's seen it all, or take a chance on a young guy? Fresh ideas. Huge decision for the club.
It's wild how much is riding on this season. It's not just about staying up. It's about, the heart of Manchester United. Can they find that fight again, the spirit they're known for? Or do they just collapse?
The whole football world's watching. And the crazy thing is, no one knows what's going to happen. It's like edge of your seat stuff.
Man, this deep dive has been intense. We covered a lot, the bad results, the money problems, tactics, even what relegation would mean. But for me, it's the human side that really hits home. Absolutely. We can talk numbers all day, but there are real people living this. Players, the manager, the staff, and of course the fans. Millions of them all over the world. They're all part of this story.
It's a reminder that even the biggest clubs, they're not invincible. Kind of humbling, really.
Totally. Nothing's guaranteed. Success doesn't last forever. Even giants can fall. But it also shows you how strong people can be. The hope, that fighting spirit, that's powerful stuff.
So there you have it, Manchester United at a crossroads. Future's uncertain, but it's going to be one heck of a ride.
For sure. So many questions, so much to see. But hey, that's what makes football so great.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And remember, anything can happen. You never know.